Hello, hello, and welcome to another one of our special editions of Slant Alpha Adventures. In this one, we're going to be talking Slant Whiskey, however. And first, for starters, what do I mean when I say Slant Whiskey? Well, there's another tutorial on this channel that you may have seen, or whether or not you have, I'll let you know. And if you don't remember this, having seen this screen, the FAA code Slant Alpha, which is the type of navigation that this channel is based on, means that you don't have any kind of RNAV capability. You don't have a GPS, you don't have an FMC, you don't have any of this kind of automatic navigation stuff. What you do have is an analog radio tuner that tunes in a VOR station, and then a deviation needle that tells you that you can set to a certain course, and then the needle tells you whether you're right or left of that course. And then it gives you the ability to fly along these airways using just analog equipment, or non-electronic equipment. You know the distance that you are from each of these stations, and you know whether you're tracking along these black paths or whether you're right or left of those paths, and you can use automation, flight automation, that can automatically track you along those paths. But that's all you have. You don't have any kind of moving map capability. You just have the deviation indicator and the distance measuring equipment, the DME, that tells you the distance to the station that you have tuned. So Slant Whiskey is essentially that same navigation process, non-RNAV capability, just radio-based navigation with the DME, the distance measuring equipment. But what you do have in the case of Slant Whiskey that you don't have with Slant Alpha is this capability, the capability to fly at altitudes between flight level 290 and flight level 410, which would be typical cruising altitudes, obviously, for jet airliners. So Slant Whiskey, radio-based navigation only, without FMC, without GPS, is how your vintage airliners would have gotten around the skies. Vintage airliners such as your 727. That's what we may see flown from time to time on our stream, but also things like the L1011, or I think FlyDSM also has a 737-200 series, which would predate the 737's FMC and RNAV capability. There's some other developers now that have pretty well modeled airliners of a vintage that predates FMC and GPS and an INS, inertial navigation systems, things like that, that you would navigate through the analog radio beacons and the high altitude jet airways, all based on VORs. So that's what Slant Whiskey means. What has happened is that a few friends of the stream have asked me to kind of talk through my process for coming up with a non-RNAV route that can be flown on the VATSIM network with air traffic control by a vintage airliner without FMC capability, without GPS or INS. And that process is ever trickier day by day, because obviously the modern airspace system is designed for airliners that do have such capability, which is the predominance of what's up in the sky these days. So the airliners that cannot fly with modern RNAV airway tracking are fewer and further between, and so the airspace system is reflective of that when it comes to not just the airways, but the standard instrument departures and standard terminal arrival procedures. So this tutorial is going to talk through my process for finding non-RNAV routes that can be flown on VATSIM in the US. Now, it's going to follow essentially the same four-step process as my general IFR routing tutorial, which is also on this channel. And that four-step process involves, first of all, the preferred route database. This is a VATSIMized preferred route database, but the FAA does maintain a database of preferred routes between city pairs that are the routing that makes it easiest for traffic flow in the U.S. And VATSIM has several different sites. This happens to be the New York ARTCC on VATSIM that has this site here and their version of the preferred route database. And it's my favorite one to use. If we strike out with this site, we can check with FlightAware and their IFR route analyzer. This pulls real-world flights between a given origin and destination within, I think, the last 2 weeks. I'm not exactly sure what the time frame is, but I believe it's the last 2 weeks. So if you don't find anything in the preferred route database, you can check the real-world routes that have been flown recently between your origin and your destination. The third step is SimBrief. I'm going to skip SimBrief for the purposes of this tutorial because SimBrief is very good about coming up with routes, again, that are capable of being flown by modern airliners in the modern airspace system. SimBrief is not as good about coming up with stuff that's outside of that box. So SimBrief, I think we will skip for purposes of this tutorial. Nothing against them, but this is not the kind of routing that SimBrief is optimized for doing. And then the fourth step, or in today's case, the third step, is going to be really just going to SkyVector and the digital terminal procedures page to look at the en route routing and look at the terminal charts, the SIDs and the stars, the standard instrument departures and standard terminal arrival routes, and figure out which ones are non-RNAV and figure out which ones we can link together to make a cohesive route that can be flown Slant Whiskey. For today's demonstration, we're going to use Dulles to Atlanta, KIAD to KATL, and we're going to put that into the preferred route database, and we can see that there is a specific route that is typically flown for these city pairs, and it's the clutch departure. I think the numbers, clutch has been updated. Aussie, I think, is still on revision 1. Clutch has been updated. But it's the clutch departure, Flask transition, and then the Aussie 1 arrival. We can check. If we go KIAD and KATL, let's just check real quick. I know for certain that these are both RNAV procedures, but I'll just show you if you didn't happen to know that off the top of your head. Here's a quick and easy way to find out. If you hover over Washington Dulles as your departure airport in SkyVector, and you kind of scroll down here, you can get to the departure procedures, and you'll see all of these are RNAV except for the capital one. So we'll kind of hold on to that knowledge for later. But for right now, we at least know that the Clutch 3 is certainly RNAV, so the route that FlightAware has given us does not work for the PRD and FlightAware. Actually, we checked it in PRD. Let's just check it in FlightAware too. We might as well. Okay, because, well, there's 63 airplanes flew that very same route. Of Clutch 3 is now current. And then one oddball decided, for whatever reason, probably because of some sort of weather that day, because he added, about 250 miles to his route unnecessarily otherwise, but there may have been some weather going on in this particular flight that this guy was deviating around. But he went the Rinaldi to the Glavin. So let's also check the Rinaldi. And like I just said, obviously if it's not the capital one, we know. But yeah, certainly the Rinaldi 4 is also RNAV. And then let's look at Atlanta. We said the Aussie 1 and then the Glavin. Let's go to the arrivals. Okay, so Glavin is RNAV, so that doesn't help us. And then the Aussie 1 is RNAV. Okay, so none of the routes that we've come up with through these two pages have been helpful to us. These are all RNAV only routes. So we are stuck with whatever we can come up with on our own. So what do we come up with on our own? Well, here's what we do. Let's go to this page, and again, you can pull up it's just the capital one. You can pull it up easily in here. In Atlanta, we might have several procedures, and I just find you can hit the little link here. It just pulls it up in a pop-up. You can hit it in the little PDF icon here, but the icon goes away, and then you have to come back and scroll down through it again. And I think it's just easier when you're going to be opening up, pretty much all of the non-RNAV arrivals into Atlanta. It's just going to be easier to, let's do Dulles first. But it's just easier to scroll through this page, and then you can right-click, open a new tab, and this page stays where it is. So you don't have to constantly scroll back to that little pop-up and scroll down through it every single time. So I just find this just a more efficient process. But you can access these procedures from SkyVector. You can access them from RNAV. You can pull them up on if you have a Navigraph charts subscription, you can pull up the Jepson versions. Obviously, these are what are these called? The NACO versions. I forget what the format's called. But anyway, same information, different format, but it'll all work, whichever one you prefer. The point is to pull up the departures from Dulles that are non-RNAV. And like we said before, we just happen to know, in our case, it's the capital one. We'll skip the continuation page. We really just need this page here that shows us the different departure gates that we can use. And we see a handful of them that are to the south and west of the airfield, so we'll keep that in mind for just a moment from now. Now let's go back here to Atlanta, KATL. And let's see what we've come up with as far as the stars. Say the stars are listed first. Chipper's RNAV, 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 Glavin's RNAV, RNAV, RNAV. All these are kind of RNAV so far. Let's keep looking for range 5. We'll right click, open a new tab. Don't need the continuation page. Andre 1 is RNAV, RNAV, RNAV. Rome 6, that's non-RNAV. We'll right click, open a new tab. Sync 6. Wines 4. Okay, so it looks like it. So we know we're using the Capital One departure out of Dulles. We don't yet know these 4 arrivals into Atlanta, whether any of them might be helpful to us at all. Let's rotate them into position. And okay, so this one, if Atlanta is in the northeast of the map here, then this SID either comes from the south or the west. So that's not helpful to us. We can get rid of that. The Rome 6, again, Atlanta's down here, so that means the Rome 6 is coming in kind of from the north and west, either from Memphis or Nashville. So that's kind of out of our way. We'll get rid of that. Cinca 6. Okay, so Atlanta's up here in this case. So that means this is all coming from Florida, basically. Cecil, Craig, yeah. Alma, southern Georgia, I believe. There's Macon, yeah. So all this is to the south and east. So really, it's the wines or it's the nothing, guys. Well, but fortunately, though, this does, in fact, come from the north and east. And so Montebello looks to be, we can pick up from Montebello, we can pick it up from Snowbird. Where's that? Oh, that's further down here. We can pick it up from Spartanburg. So let's keep that in mind. MOL, SOT, or SPA. And then let's kind of look at the ones that are down to the south and west here, because we got to kind of figure out how to link these up. We got Fluky, Hafner, maybe Casanova, Linden. Yeah, let's start with the VORs: Gordonsville, Casanova, and Linden, and to see if those link up well with Montebello. Obviously, Montebello looks like it's the one that's the furthest north and east. Worst case scenario, we can also try and find a route that links into Snowbird or Spartanburg. But let's just start with Montebello. No, I tell you what, let's just do this. MOL, SPA, and what was the other one? On the wines, Snowbird, SOT. SOT. So this is obviously we're not putting in a route right now. We're just plotting a 3-point. Montebello is all the way up here, and then Spartanburg and Snowbird are down here. So let's flip over to the World High. Snowbird's on a jet airway that kind of goes straight off to the north. I doubt that's going to be too helpful to us unless we can connect it in somewhere that kind of goes that way. That doesn't really look like it. So probably nothing useful there. And then, what is this one? This is Spartanburg. Now there's some blue routes that go to the north. These are the RNAV routes. Those won't help us. We got the J14. So this is a combination. This is okay, that comes out from Richmond. So we might look at a route that takes us to Richmond and then the J14 to Greensboro. And then I guess just direct to Spartanburg. So that'd be an option. All right, so that'd be an option. Something that would get us to Richmond and then to, what did we just say? To Spartanburg. Oh, Greensboro. GSO and SPA. So that's one option, but that takes us, well, that's not actually that bad. Now, Richmond's not one of the departure gates on the Capital One. There's really nothing that's straight south from Dulles. Let's look and see where Gordonsville is and Casanova. Let's go back here. So let's get rid of that and just go just Gordonsville. And then we'll paste those back in. Yeah, okay, so Gordonsville's kind of over there. Well, actually, so here's what we got, guys. Look at this. So here's Casanova. Casanova is one of the ones on the Capital One departure. Montebello, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, that was the kind of the northeasternmost one on the on the Atlanta arrival. Montebello, right? Yeah, it is. Look at that. So that looks like a pretty good bet right there. Let's blank this out. This is called CPTAO1 and then GVE Gordonsville. Now, Capital One being just a radar vector departure, that might not pop in here. Whoops. KID, KATL. CPTAO1 to GVE. Okay, it is good. And then this is MOL, right? Montebello. And then the Wines 4, WHINZ4. MOL, WHINZ4. All right, cool. Now, the only question I have then. Oh, wait a minute. No, I wasn't. Yeah, so it wasn't Gordonsville. It was Casanova. Yeah. The J42 is north and eastbound only there. So it's not GVE, it's CSN. Crap. All right. Like that. Dang you. CPTAL1 and then CSN, Casanova. Then Montebello, then the Wines 4. Right? Okay. Now, what are we doing from CSN to Montebello? It's the J48, looks like, right? Wonder if we can just make that happen in there like that. No, okay, let's just take that out and retype J4. Some SkyVector's funny about this sometimes. J48, Montebello. Yeah, there we go. And then Wines 4. There we are. Okay. So that looks like it, guys. Just to confirm, I mean, first of all, that's a nice direct route. But just to confirm, let's double check Capital One. Narrative and following page. Now let's pull up the Capital One continuation page. Just to be sure that we're not seeing any notes on that continuation page that would prevent us from doing what we just decided we might possibly be able to do. Capital One continuation. Doesn't say anything about turbojets, only, where does it say notes? Notes. I don't see any notes. Oh, down here, radar required, which obviously would be radar vectors. It's radar, not radar on your plane, but radar services from air traffic control. Obviously, they've got to give you radar vectors to Casanova. You don't want to just turn directly, maintain runway heading, and then turn toward Casanova only once they've told you proceed direct Casanova, resume on navigation. There's nothing here. Yeah, right. Expect radar vectors to file the signed route or depicted fix. Okay. So yeah, nothing here that says you can't fly this as a turbojet. So we're good there. And then the Wines is turbojet and turboprop only. So again, there's nothing here that says you can't do this as a turbojet. Matter of fact, you almost have to be. Can't be a general aviation plane. Can't be, well, sorry, turboprops could be GA. Turbojets could be GA, actually. Let me say it correctly. You can't be a piston aircraft and fly this, but you must be a turboprop or a turbojet. So this would be good for something like your FlyJSim 727 or your L1011 or what have you. So again, in this case, Dulles to Atlanta, here's your route. Capital One departure, radar vectors Casanova, J48 Montebello, and the Wines 4 arrival. So there you go. That's kind of the process for getting through. Again, it's just about pulling up every departure and every departure procedure from your origin, every arrival procedure at your destination. Eliminate the non-RNAV ones, and then just go through the transitions, plot them on SkyVector, and start to figure out which ones link up. It's not terribly easy all the time, and there are some destinations that you don't really have a lot of good options. You'll notice down here in Florida that there are really no remaining conventional nav airways. All these are blue, meaning that they're all RNAV. At this point, enemy, you can't find that on a radial. You can approximate it, but you can't find it, and you can't track directly toward that point without any kind of RNAV capability. But what you can often do if you're going to Florida from Dulles would be to get just as far south and west as you can, probably Charleston, and then from Charleston just like direct Savannah, from Savannah direct to maybe Craig, and then Craig maybe direct to Ormond Beach, and I'm pretty sure Ormond Beach is the feeder for one of the non-RNAV arrivals into Orlando. So yeah, you do have to kind of get creative at some points. But in this case, at least, we had a good non-RNAV, just a kind of a generic redirected departure to use out of Dulles, and then we do have an actual charted, a routed non-RNAV departure to fly into Atlanta. So there you go. That's the general process. And again, the process is applicable pretty much anywhere in the U.S. And hopefully that is helpful to you. If you have specific questions, please leave them in the comments. If there's a particular route that you'd like to see, let me know that as well, and we might even choose a date to live stream just a route planning process where you guys can interact with live stream chat and ask questions, and we can all kind of work through it together. So feel free to leave any suggestions or questions in the comments, and we'll be happy to address them on the Slant Alpha Adventures live stream. So hope that you got some use out of that, and hope that we will see and hear you in the skies. Be healthy and safe in your own adventures in the meantime, and we'll talk to you soon.